Hello and welcome to another knitting needle review. Today I'm going to review Knipro needles. Knitting needles can vary a lot in price. Is it worth buying the more expensive ones, or are the cheaper ones just as good? I've spent a lot of time teaching in yarn shops, and while I'm there I quite often see knitters just grabbing the cheapest needles on the wall, and I'm not sure that that's always the best idea. So in this series I'm going to review my favourite needle brands. I've already reviewed ChowGoo and Likia needles, and today I'm going to focus on Knipro or Knitter's Pride, and I may also do Higher. I'm going to list all the previous reviews below this video, and as I review more I'll try and add all the links to all the videos. You can also find it as a playlist on my YouTube channel and on the tutorials page on my website, YarnAddict.co.uk. If you have tried any of the needle brands that I am reviewing and you like them, let me know. Tell me what you think of them. And if you've tried any other needle brands that I haven't reviewed, let me know, and maybe I will try and add them to my list. I've also got a video on circular needles where I talk about why I like circular needles and how to use them. So if you're interested in circular needles and you're new to circular needles, it might be worth checking out that video as well. I'll pop that below, the link to that below this video as well. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. Thank you very much for joining me. If you are a regular subscriber and a regular viewer, thank you very much for coming back. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and please like this video if you like it, and please comment if you would like to contribute to the discussion. I'd love to hear which needles you've tried and which ones are your favorites and why. So do tell me in the comments below. So for quite a few years now, I've mainly been using circular needles. So I am mostly going to talk about circular needles because that's what I use the most. Most of the time I use interchangeable needles, which are the needles where you can screw the tips on and off. So you can buy the cables and the needle tips separately and then mix and match them. In this video, with Knipro, I've got quite a lot of experience with both their fixed circular needles and their interchangeable ones. Knipro do a huge range of needles. I'll go through all the different types in a minute, and I haven't tried all the different varieties that they do, so I'm mainly going to focus this review on the different Knipro needles that I have actually tried. Knipro also do a big range of crochet hooks and accessories. They do row counters, stitch markers, blocking mats, blocking cables, no, blocking wires. Blocking mats and blocking wires, and the blocking wires and the blocking mats that I use are actually from Knipro as well. So they do a full range of needle accessories. It's a huge company and it's a worldwide company. In the UK and in Europe they're called Knipro. In the US I think they're called Knitter's Pride. I've checked out the Knitter's Pride and the Knipro websites and they seem to be about the same. I'll pop all the links to the different websites below. I know that Knipro or Knitter's Pride are sold in a variety of countries around the world, so you may be able to find a local stockist if you just Google them. And if you Google Knipro and you're not in Europe, in your part of the world, they may be known under different brands. So tell me what they're called in your country. I think I've even seen them in Norway under the label of one of the Norwegian yarn companies. Can't remember which one, maybe Sandnes Garn, but I'm sure I've seen them in Norway a few years ago under a different label, but they look exactly the same. So they may be known under different names. I'm going to call them Knipro because that's what we call them here in the UK. So Knipro is based in India, and according to their website, they are an ethical company. I did see an article about them in a magazine a few years ago. I think it might have been in the Knit magazine. And I learned a lot of stuff about them that I didn't know when I read that article, and it gave me the impression they were a very ethical company that really looked after their workers. So on their website they have a commitment, and I'll read that out to you to make sure I get it right. So on their website it says, "We commit to provide our customers with superior needlecraft products, to maintain a high standard of excellence for all our products, to provide our employees with on-the-job training and education, to honour our community of workers by providing them with fair wage employment, to protect our environment as well as the land upon which we work." And I do think that's important to know that the company you're using is an ethical company, at least according to what their website said and what this article I read in a magazine a few years ago said. So that was one thing I didn't know about Knipro before, and it has impressed me. Knipro are cheaper than the other needles that I've reviewed so far. They're cheaper than Chogu and they're cheaper than Lykke. I may also review Haya. I'm not quite sure how they compare to Haya because I can't remember how expensive Haya are. But they are definitely cheaper than Lykke and Chogu. The Knipro knitting needles come in straights, in fixed circulars and interchangeable circulars. So fixed circulars and interchangeable circulars, and double pointed needles, as well as crochet hooks and loads of other knitting notions and equipment that you might need. They do different materials. I'm going to look at my notes to try and remember everything. So in wood, they do Symphony, Jumbo, Basics, Royale, Ginger, and Cubics. Out of their wooden needles, I've tried the Symphony ones and the Cubics ones. I'll talk more about the individual ones in a minute. And in aluminium, they got Zing. Let me just show you as we go. So in their metal, in their aluminium ones, they got Zing and Smart Stix, and they got the basic aluminium. I haven't actually tried the basic aluminium, so I don't know what they're like, but I do have the Zing and the Smart Stix, which I'll talk more about later. They also have acrylic needles called Trends. I did try these acrylic Trends needles a few years ago when they first came out. They came in lots of different colors, so each size had a different color. So I bought some to try them out because they look like fun and colorful. And to be quite honest, I wasn't impressed. They were very squeaky and I really didn't enjoy knitting with them. They were better with certain fibres than others, but I can't remember which fibres they were best with. But most of my knitting, they felt very squeaky and I really didn't like them. So I think I got rid of them and I haven't tried them since. So I don't know whether they've improved. I've got a feeling they were taken off sale for a while. So maybe they have reformulated them or something and maybe they're better now. I don't know. If you tried the Trends acrylic needles, let me know what you thought of them. I haven't tried them for quite a few years and I didn't particularly like them, so being totally honest here. And then they also have the carbons, carbon fibre, which I have in straights and circulars, and they do brass needles, which are Nova. So the Zing, Smart Stix and Basics aluminium are all aluminium needles, and the Nova are brass. They just look like silver coloured metal needles to me, and I didn't realise that they were actually a different metal than the Zing and the Smart Stix. So the first ones I bought were the Symphony needles, and the Symphony needles are the ones you see in most yarn shops. So they are the wooden ones that have this kind of multicolored wood. And I remember when they first came out, I hadn't seen anything like it. I bought the interchangeable needle set that Knipro do. I bought it when they first became available in the UK. Had it as a Christmas present one year, many years ago. And I think actually at the time, I don't think they were even called Knipro. I think they were actually sold under the Knipix brand. Knipix is a large online store in the US, and that's where I first saw them, but I didn't want to order them from the US because they're shipping and customs and things. And then they were available in the UK, and I'm pretty sure it was under the Knipix brand that I bought my first set, but they very quickly changed the branding to Knipro. So my first set of Knipro needles were the interchangeable set, and I bought the whole set because I wanted a set of interchangeable needles, and I used them exclusively for years. So for years they were the only needles that I used, and I really liked them. So the Symphony ones, I've got this multicolored wood, nice smooth tips. The wood is nice and smooth and even. It's I don't know, polished or something, and it's got a metal join here. The join from the metal to the wood is nice and smooth. I mean, you can feel it, but it's fairly nice and smooth. And the join from the cable to the needle tip is also nice and smooth. This is a fixed circular, so the tip doesn't come off. I couldn't find any interchangeable ones, but the interchangeable ones also have good joints. So the joint from the needle tip to the cable on the interchangeable ones is also good. I have had, when I've been teaching, specifically when I've been teaching, come across a lot of knitters who are not happy with the interchangeable ones, saying they can't get a tight join with the cable and the needle tip, and I think that's because they don't understand that they need to really tighten them. It comes with a little tool that you stick into a hole at the needle. I can't demonstrate because these are not the interchangeable ones. I think I might demonstrate it in my circular needle work. I think I demonstrated in my circular needle video. And then you use the lever to push against. And I think a lot of people don't quite understand, one, that they have to tighten them up, and two, that how to use that tool properly, because I have come across that quite a lot. So you do need to tighten them up properly or they will come apart. And if you're knitting something quite heavy or something you're knitting with them for a long time, it might be worth retightening them every so often. If you find that your yarn is really catching quite badly, check your join, because quite often the needles have come undone slightly and the yarn kind of falls into the little groove where your needle tip is unscrewed. And if you don't tighten it up as quickly as possible, you may risk your whole needle tip falling off. This is not just exclusive to Knipro, by the way, but Knipro is the company that I've come across this with the most, mainly with people who've taken my workshops over the years. The Symphony I made from wood. I think it's birch wood, but I'm not 100% sure because the website didn't say, but most of their wood needles are made from birch wood. They got nice point, nice smooth points. They're nice and smooth and even. They've got, I think they've been polished in some way, I don't know, but they feel nice and smooth, feel warm in your hands, comfortable to knit with, and they're a good all-round needle, suitable for most things, and they are very, very popular. Certainly in the UK, apart from the Pony brand, these are probably the needles you will see most on your standard local yarn shop needle wall. These are probably the ones that are most common, and they are very good all-round needles, so I do recommend these. The other wooden needles from Knipro that I have tried are the cubics. So the cubics are square needles. I don't know how easy it is to see it, but they are square. They're made from wood, they're made from birch wood. I ordered a 4mm fixed circular needle recently to try out. I've been wanting to try them for a long time, but I kept forgetting to order them when I placed a wholesale order, and I don't see them in very many yarn shops. So most of the yarn shops where I teach tend to stock the Symphony range and maybe the Zing and the Smart Stix range, but I haven't seen the square ones very often. So I wanted to try them. So recently, when I was placing an order for some crochet hooks, I ordered just one single fixed circular needle to try it out, and I ended up complaining because I don't know how you're supposed to see it, but here there's a bit of a catch, so it looks like the cable hasn't been pushed into this metal bit properly. There's a kind of bit of a gap here. It feels like it should probably be pushed in further, and my knitting kept catching on it, so it was getting a bit annoying when I was knitting with them. So I did complain about them to my wholesaler, and they did replace them. And I've knitted some swatches with the replacement needle they sent me, and I quite enjoy knitting with them. They feel light, they feel similar to the Symphony ones, except they're square. They're comfortable to hold. You can't really, I mean, you can feel the square shape when you hold them, but they don't feel uncomfortable. The points are good. They got nice pointy tips, similar to Symphony, I think. The join, the metal onto the needle tip, the wooden and the metal join is good, apart from that little bit that I complained about. The other side, the join is good. So I do like them. They got the same cables as the Symphony ones. They were nice to knit with. Now the idea with the cubics with the square shape is that they're supposed to be better for your hands. They're supposed to be easier and more comfortable to hold in your hands, and they are recommended for people with arthritis in their hands. So I don't have arthritis in my hands, so I don't know whether they make a difference or not. So if you have arthritis in your hands and you have tried the cubics or another square needle brand, let me know what you thought. Did it make a difference? And if you do go ahead and buy these and try them, let me know what you thought of them, because I don't know whether they make that much of a difference or not. I've also read somewhere else, not specifically about the cubics, but about square needles in general, that they are supposed to give you more even stitches. I don't know whether that's true or not because I haven't compared them. I may try and do a comparison video where I knit a swatch on different types of needles, metal, wood, square, round, and then see whether it makes any difference to the tension. So I might do that in a future video. But these are the base cubics needles, and they're nice. I don't know whether the square shape makes that much difference, but I quite like knitting with them, and I might get some more sizes in the future. Next up is the carbons. So these are made from carbon fiber. They are black with metal tips. So the carbon fiber is the black bit, and then they got metal tips, and the cables are black as well. Whereas on the wooden ones, they are purple. They are nice and pointy, possibly slightly pointier than the Symphony, I'm not quite sure, but they feel nice and pointy. They're nice to knit with. I mainly ordered these to try a few years ago, and I actually ordered them for my workshops. So I keep a set of needles in the most common sizes that I use for my workshops, so that if people don't bring needles, I've got needles so they can borrow. And I decided to try the carbons when they first came out, and they're a little bit more expensive than the Symphony ones. I really like them, and loads of knitters have tried them in my workshops over the years, and the feedback I've had is really good. So they feel warm to the touch. They are nice and smooth. They are smooth and even, but they're not super slippery. They're not like metal slippery. So if you don't like wood because you tend to break them, you might sit on them or somehow break them easily, then the carbons might be a good idea. So as I said, they're made from carbon fiber, which is a very strong material. So I'm assuming that means that they're less likely to break. The joint from this metal bit to the carbon fiber is nice and smooth. I mean, you can feel it, but my yarn's never caught on that. And again, the joint from the metal bit of the needle here to the cable is also nice and smooth. So I do like these needles. I think they're good all-round needles. I do also have a set of these short straight needles. So these are not the standard straight needles, these are shorter ones. And I bought these when I first started teaching. I like to bring straight needles to my workshops, because when I first started teaching, a lot of people didn't like circular needles. So I bought a set of the regular long straight needles, which are quite long, and I just found them a bit of a nuisance to carry around. So after a few years, I got a set of these shorter straight needles, because they were really all I needed for my workshops. These days, I tend to mainly offer people circular needles, unless people are really not keen on circular needles or have never tried them before. Then I do kind of mention that I've got straight ones as well that they can borrow. But on the whole, I find most people tend to knit with circular needles these days in my workshops. So I think that means that people in the UK are getting more used to circular needles. So I do like the carbons. I don't know if I've knitted like a whole project with them, but I've certainly used them in a lot of workshops, and I've used them for a lot of swatches over the years, and they are really nice. I was tempted to buy some more, but because I was mostly using my Chow Goose at the time, I felt like I couldn't really justify buying any more. But they are very, very nice, and I do recommend them, especially if you're not very keen on the wood ones. I think these are a good alternative to metal ones. So let's look at the metal needles that Knipro do. So these are the Zing needles. They're made from aluminium. I have 4 different sizes. I actually have 5 sizes, but one size is in a project at the moment. So I mostly use these for sock knitting. So I got some Zings a few years ago when they first came out. I was attracted by the fact that they were coloured. And each size has a different colour. So this is 2.5 millimeter, and I usually use those for socks. And then this is 4 millimeter. And oh, I realized this. These two are both 4 millimeter, and they're both blue, but they're a different color blue. Now I wonder whether they originally did that color blue and then they changed, because I thought all the different lengths, these are same, but that's a 40 millimeter long circular needle, and that's 80 centimeter long. So I'm wondering whether maybe they've changed color, because they are the same size, but they are different color blue. And then I've got some 3.5mm, I think these are. Let's just see if I can find the size. Okay, I can't find the size on these. That is the problem with Knipro. The sizes can rub off. Oh no, there we go, found it. 3.5mm, so they are like a limey green, yellowy limey green. Now, as I said, what I use this for most is knitting socks, and I tend to knit socks on these needles, which are 2.5mm. They do a purple colour and a bright pink colour. Now, I wish that all their needles came in all the different colours, because I would happily knit everything on the purple and the bright pink ones. But obviously they only come in, they're colour coded, the sizes are colour coded, so you may not get the colour needles that you want in the size that you need, so you may end up knitting with a colour you don't like. Like, I'm not a fan of red, but I know that's a minor thing, it doesn't really matter, but they are nice needles. Let me just put these down. They're nice needles. They are a little bit blunter, I would say, than the Symphony ones and the carbon ones, so let's just compare them. As I've got them all here, it's not very often I do like a straight comparison like that, so let's just have a look at them. Yes, I don't know how easy it is to see that these are different sizes, by the way, but looking at them, I would say the Symphony and the carbons are similar in their pointiness, but the Zings are definitely a bit blunter. They're not as pointy. Now, when I knit socks, I don't really notice it, because these are such tiny sizes anyway. I don't really notice that they're not as pointy, but the Symphony and the carbons are definitely pointier than the Zing. Zing are made from aluminium. Don't know if I said that or not. They're slick and slippery like most metal needles are. They're comfortable to knit with. They're very smooth. Like I said, I've used the needles for socks a lot. This red bit hasn't rubbed off, and the size is printed on here, that hasn't rubbed off either. So don't know whether maybe it's etched in. I can kind of feel it when I run my finger over it, but it hasn't rubbed off, and I do really like these things. They are very good all-round needles. If you like metal needles, then you probably will like the Zings. I think they're very nice needles. Another metal needle, aluminium needle that Knipro do is the Smart Stix. When these first came out, apart from the colour, the fact that they alternate between silver and green, I was a little bit like, well, what's the difference between these and the Zings? But what they actually have is, the reason they're like that is because that's measurement. So that is 2 centimeters. So one of these blocks of colour is 2 centimeters. So these are 80 centimeter long, and they start on one end. So on this first bit it says 2 centimeters, 4 centimeters, 6 centimeters, 8 centimeters, etc. I don't know whether in the US they're in inches, maybe, I don't know. And it actually does, it's not as obvious on the cable, but it does actually carry on across the cable. There are little markings on the cable. They're not that easy to see, at least not on this cable, but it does have little silver markings on the cable. So the idea is that you can use this to measure your knitting. Is that useful, or is that just a bit gimmicky? I would say it's a little bit gimmicky, to be quite honest. I have used them to measure my socks just to get a rough idea of how far I've knitted, but if I needed to get an accurate measurement, I would grab a tape measure and use that. So I only use them to measure just to get a rough idea, and if I want to measure properly, I would grab a tape measure. But when I saw them in a yarn shop, I thought they're a bit of fun. I wanted to see how they compared to the Zing needles, and to me they seem to be about the same. I don't know with the Smart Stix, I haven't actually looked at the other sizes, so I don't know whether the cable always matches the colour, but I'm assuming it probably does. And the pointiness is the same, similar to the Zing, I think. So I think basically they're the same needle as the Zings, they just come in different colours with this marking. So I think that's a bit of fun. Is it that useful? I don't know. I mainly use the Zing and the Smart Stix for socks. I tend to alternate between these and these. I have 2 of these. I think I have 2 of these. So I tend to use those mainly for socks. They're my main needles for knitting socks, because I tend to use magic loop. So these are the Knipro needles that I've tried. I love Knipro until I discovered ChiaoGoo, and then more recently I discovered Licker. So since I discovered ChiaoGoo, they became my go-to needles. I haven't used ChiaoGoo, haven't used Knipro that much, but until I discovered ChiaoGoo, Knipro were my favorite needle brand. I think they are good budget brand. So I know some of the varieties they do are more expensive. Like I think the Zings cost more than the Symphony, for example. Carbons are definitely more expensive than the Symphony ones. So it's worth looking at across their range and see what the different prices are. Most of the needles that people tend to buy as a budget needle brand, certainly most of the yarn shops that I teach in, their budget brand tends to be Pony. And quite frankly, I wouldn't bother. I would not waste my money on Pony needles. Unless you buying them for a small project, maybe. I wouldn't bother with Pony needles. I think they're awful. I threw all mine away. No, I didn't actually throw mine away. I gave them to a charity that were collecting craft equipment to send to an orphanage in Uganda. And the lady who ran the charity was very impressed with when I gave them my whole Pony cheap needle collection. I did that when I got my Knipro interchangeable needles. So I wouldn't touch Ponies. I don't recommend them. I tell people to spend a little bit more money and buy Knipro instead. It does make a big difference. The needles you knit do make a big difference. You spend a lot of time knitting on a project, and you're going to spend hours and hours and hours on that project. So having something that feels comfortable in your hand that you like knitting with is important, in my opinion. Obviously, I realise that not everyone can afford Knipro. So if you really can't afford it, then go for the whatever you can afford. I always say buy the best materials that you can afford, but I think it's better to get some the interchangeables, buying them individually. So you buy a set of needle tips and a set of and a cable, and then you can mix and match them. You don't have to buy the full interchangeable set. You can just buy a 4mm needle tips and an 80cm long cable. And then if you need a 3.5mm needles, you can just buy the 3.5mm needle tips and use your 80cm long cable that you already have. So I do highly recommend considering interchangeable needles. I will recommend them because I think they are one of the best inventions that knitting we've ever had in knitting, to be quite honest. The Knipro has the needle size printed on the needles. Now, this is carbons that's been used in my workshops for quite a long time. And the needle size was printed on here, but it's almost completely rubbed out. Most of my, where are they? Most of my, I think all of my Symphony needles, which are quite old, all of the needle sizes have rubbed off. I noticed on the Smart Stix, which I've used a lot, the needle sizes and the measurements have not rubbed off, and the same thing on the Zing that I use for socks, and I've used these a lot over a few years now, and the needle size has not rubbed off. So maybe they are better now at the way they print the needle size on to make sure it doesn't rub off. Maybe it still rubs off the carbons and the Symphony and it just doesn't rub off the metal ones. I don't know, but be prepared for the fact that the needle size may rub off. It's always useful to have a needle gauge handy so that you can check the needle sizes in case the needle size does rub off your needles. One common complaint I get a lot about Knipro needles is that the cables are very kinky and twisty. I get that complaint a lot when I'm teaching. People are using my needles in their workshop. So I twist mine up when I store them. I basically wind them around my hand like that, and then I take the end through the middle twice, because then they stay under control when I store them. And when I undo them, they are very twisty. If you're doing magic loop or you're knitting a small piece on a longer circular needle, then that can be very annoying. And I know that it annoys people a lot, especially when they're doing magic loop. If you have enough stitches, whether you're knitting back and forth or in the round, if you have enough stitches to fill the whole needle, then it doesn't really matter because the weight of your stitches will straighten out the needle. But if the kinkiness is annoying to you, what I recommend is that you put this down on your ironing board. If you got someone who can help you and hold on to the needle tips, that would be useful. If you're on your own, put some books or some heavy object on each needle tip so that the needle is held straight. And then just take your iron and use the steam function, press the steam button and hold it as close to the needle tip as you can get, but don't actually touch the needle tip because you don't want to melt that cable. Just hold it above the needle tip and spray the steam button. And that, in my opinion, has straightened out my needles. Having said that, if you do it and it melts your needles, don't blame me. Be careful, and also be careful you don't burn your hands. But I've done that a few times and it has helped. So that is one thing I recommend, but just be careful. So if you're looking for basic, affordable, quality needles, then I would try Knipro. As you can see, they do wooden ones, they do bamboo ones, they do metal ones. They do brass, they do aluminium, they do acrylic, they do carbon fiber, they do a huge range of knitting needles. So whatever you like, you're probably likely to find a needle type that suits you, whether you like metal, wood, acrylic, carbon fiber, whatever you like. I'm sure you'll find something to suit you. They are good all around quality needles. I have experienced a few quality issues with them over the years, especially a few years ago. There seemed to be a period where they seemed to have a few quality issues, but that seems to have improved lately. They're not, I've had more quality issues with them than I have with my Chow Goose, but my Chow Goose are a lot more expensive. So I think you do get what you pay for. If you do have any problems with the quality of the needles, do contact your retailer, because they will replace them for you if it's a genuine quality problem, rather than you using them incorrectly, for example. So I do think they're good quality for the price, but you do get what you pay for, and if you pay more, you do get better quality needles. That's just the way things are. But I do recommend them. I think they are great needles. I am impressed with their ethical fair trade policy according to their website. I think that is great, especially because they're made in a country, India, which does probably have a problem with workers being paid a fair wage and workers being taken advantage of, I think, and where a lot of people live in a lot of poverty. So I am impressed with their fair trade ethical worker policy. So tell me, have you tried Knipro? Which Knipro needles have you tried? What are Knipro called in your country? Are they called something else? Let me know what you think. If you've tried Knipro, tell me which ones you've tried. Tell me what you think of them. Tell me what your favourite needles are. If you haven't already subscribed, then please consider subscribing. If you are already a subscriber, then thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It makes a big difference. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and leave me a comment. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will link all the videos for my other needle reviews below, and I'll also link my circular needle video below as well. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.